Good evening. Welcome to the May 6th, 6:30 p.m. City Council meeting. At this time, we will stand for the pledge and prayer by Councilman Loftus.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow. Our Heavenly Father, we come thanking you again for this day which you have granted us. We thank you for the rain which we've been receiving here in the last few days. Also, Father, we ask that as this council gathered tonight, that you will grant us the wisdom and understanding, that we will make the right decisions that will help our city and our citizens. And also, we want to thank you, dear Father, for the staff, the administrative staff that's working here for our city, and also all the employees that work for our cities that are helping to make our city better.
Yes.
And we pray, dear Father, that you will grant us the wisdom, this council, the wisdom to make the right decisions. In Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pete. And then at this time, I have a proclamation to read, and then Deidre will come up here and talk about it. Whereas travel and tourism contribute greatly to the culture, enrichment, economic growth, and overall vitality of the city of Borger. And whereas meetings, events, festivals, and leisure travel support a thriving local economy and foster meaningful community connections. And whereas the city of Borger has demonstrated its continued commitment to tourism development through the expansion of the Dome Civic and Convention Center and the support of community events such as the Battle of the Bands, investment in the Texas music-friendly certification process, and the promotion of arts, cultural heritage, and outdoor recreational assets. And whereas Borger has been designated a film-friendly Texas community, recognizing our readiness to support creative industries and showcase our unique landscapes and local talent. And whereas Borger values and encourages all forms of travel, whether for leisure, business, or sports, as beneficial to the city's economic resilience and social vitality. And whereas declaring Borger a tourism-friendly community reaffirms our commitment to being a welcoming, innovative, and inclusive destination for visitors, residents, and future partners alike. And whereas this designation aligns with the mission of the Texas Governor's Office to promote tourism as a vital component of statewide economic development and community pride. Now, therefore, I, Karen Felker, Mayor of the City of Borger, Texas, on behalf of the City Council and the residents of our great city, do hereby proclaim the City of Borger as a tourism-friendly community. Let it be known that Borger will continue to foster an environment that welcomes visitors, supports tourism initiatives, and showcases the spirit of boomtown pride. In witness thereof, this day, the 6th day of May, 2025. And Deidre is going to come.
Good evening, Council. So this comes at the perfect time of the month because May 4th through the 10th is actually National Travel and Tourism Week, so this lines up perfectly. Having a tourism-friendly proclamation is one of the steps required for us to obtain a tourism-friendly certification through the Texas Governor's Office. And so a lot of people kind of ask, why would we declare Borger tourism friendly? And why not is really my answer. Last year alone, we had over 23,000 visitors to just the Dome Civic and Convention Center, and that's not accounting for the visitors we had for Boomtoberfest, for Battle of the Bands, and for the other 30-plus events that we hosted last year. So Borger really is posed to be just a great hub for tourism. We are right next door to Lake Meredith and the National Park Service. And whether we like it or not, we have industrial tourism due to our industry and our refineries and our industry leaders. So this is just another step for us to continue to be in every governmental database we possibly can for the state of Texas and get more people to come and visit our town and see what we have here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Deidre.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I could have gave this to you, Deidre. You might want to catch it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will.
Questions and comments?
I'll entertain questions or comments from any citizen that would like to speak. And I see none, so we will move on to the election items. Item 6, consider and take appropriate action on, I'm sorry, I don't have my paper. I'm sorry, Resolution R-006-25. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I appreciate that. Okay. Consider and take appropriate action on Resolution R-006-25, canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the city's general election conducted on May 3rd, 2025. Stella? Okay. So we have all the...
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I should have got it. Okay, so at this time, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution R-006-25, canvassing the returns and declaring the results of a city officer election to fill the term of council member place 4 and council member place 5 on the Borger City Council for the 3-year term beginning in May 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Item 7, administer oath of office and present the certificate of election to newly elected officers.
As newly elected officers, I'm going to start. Insert your name, please. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of City Council Member, Place 4 and Place 5 of the state of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God. You would sign. Take your seat.
Bob, where you going? Okay.
And item 8, conduct an election for mayor and mayor pro tem for the election year 2025 to 2026. Mrs. Sauls.
Don't go too far. You have to take it back from them. I'm neutral in all this, remember?
Couldn't get my pen right.
All right. It is Karen Felker unanimously and Kim Perez.
Thank you. Thank you. And moving on now to the consent agendas, which is 9 through 12. And if there's any questions or comments or anything on the consent agendas, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept consent agenda items 9 through 12 as written.
And all in favor? And it passes. And all opposed? And then item to consider, the next item to consider is item 13, consider and take appropriate action to receive the fiscal year 2024 popular annual financial report. Deidre. Ms. Thompson.
I'm assuming Garrett has gave everybody a copy already. Basically, the popular annual financial report is a smaller, more condensed, user-friendly version of the comprehensive annual financial report. Both of these reports are available on our website, borgertx.gov. And for this one, we want to make it understandable, we want to make it user-friendly, but also engaging to the general public. We want to make it to where you can look at it and understand kind of a clear snapshot of what our city's financial position is, rather than going, the hundreds of pages through the actual comprehensive financial report. I've also created an ebook too, as well on our websites, both borgertx.gov and our Visit Borger website, where you can view these online. We have them in person. You can pick up a copy, or you can get a hold of us and we can mail you out a copy if you would like, if anybody is interested, or again, you can visit any of our websites. But yeah, look through it. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, that's about all I know.
Thank you.
Looks good, Deidre.
Thank you.
This one's nice because you don't have to be an accountant to understand.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
The audit is very important, but it is very number-centric.
It's great for the citizens. Okay, if there's no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to receive the City of Borger fiscal year 2024 popular annual financial report and authorize its submission to the Government Financial Officers Association for award consideration.
And all in favor? And it passes. And item 14 is consider and take appropriate action to receive the fiscal year 2024 Performance Management Report. Mr. Spradlin.
So, for a while, as part of our budget and as part of our overall operations, we've been kind of working to implement the performance management plan. 2 years ago, that kind of replaced what used to be the old monthly report. And so we are trying to, make sure that we're basing our decisions on that and measuring it. In our 5th year of this program now, we finally got enough data to where we can do an analysis at the end of it. So the book that you have in front of you and what is available online at our website is our first kind of fiscal year analysis. And so looking at the multi-year trends, what you see monthly is our monthly trend on our monthly targets. This is how we've performed over years. And so now we finally have enough data to where we can start seeing through everything. So I wanted to kind of highlight a few of our results here and just kind of remind you, we do have 6 operational divisions with 27 functional departments. We measure 54 ICMA benchmarks, which allow us to compare ourselves to other cities, and then 249 key performance indicators. So we ended last year 60% on target or trending positive and 23% trending negative. So as you go through the book, everything's kind of aligned the same way. You've got your chart with the line indicating our target, and then now what you're going to start seeing is a little trend analysis over each of those measures. So I did kind of want to point out a few things. So in 2024, you can see that we're still trending under our benchmark for sick leave used per full-time equivalent. So the national average is 63 hours of sick leave per year per employee. Last year, we were at 53. A year before that, we were at 44. Of course, you kind of see that peak up a little bit in 2020 and 2021 as we were dealing with the pandemic. I like this because, we want healthy employees and we want a healthy culture. I like seeing sick time because, to me, from my days in the police department, I knew that sometimes when the culture might not be the healthiest, you take more what you call mental health days. Mm-hmm. And so, if we see that trending positive, I think that means that we're doing something well for our employees. And that also continues over into fire and EMS sick leave use per FTE. So you can tell there must be some really unhappy fire and EMS departments out there compared to we are. The national average 78 hours per firefighter or EMT, and we're at 32. So we've held steady for about the last 2 years after coming down from that peak in 2020, which is also still lower than our average before that at 41 hours. And of course, like I said, when we look at what we've done that might impact in those last years, we've, recalibrated the salary schedules, we've changed our benefit package, we've added parental leave now, we've done a lot of things which I think, make us a better employer. Same thing on the police side, a little higher than fire EMS, but also keep in mind that fire uses it in more chunks, but they've also got more days off. So it kind of is a little weird, but the national average is 71 hours per police officer. We're at 43 this year. So that's, I think, still well below the average and trending good. So I think that's showing that we are doing some things good. Other thing I want to point out compared to other people is workers' comp claims per 100 FTEs. So last year we were at 6. The national average is 15. So we're definitely a fairly safe workforce as well. When you look at that days lost to injury per 100 FTE, So we're even performing even better for there, which means what injuries we do have are less severe than national average. So national average is 92 days lost per year per 100 FTEs. We were at 14. So we're lucky that we don't have a whole lot of lost time. When you narrow that down into fire and EMS, national average is 153 days lost per 100 FTEs. Last year we were at 27, year before that 13. And then you can see we've had a pretty good trend of being very safe in those departments. And of course, 2019 was Chief Watson's part of his fire issue. Police days lost per 100. There again, national average 119. We're at 49, still trending fairly positive and all of that. So definitely got a safe environment there as well. When we look at this is fire and EMS FTEs per 1,000 people. So the national average is 3. We're at 3.2. So we are at a pretty good ratio for, the population that we serve. Medical responses per 1,000 population, national average is at 94. You can see since we've taken over EMS, that's gone up from 72 to 103. So we are responding more based on population. And this population is divided by our population of the service area. So that does include, Fritch and the southern county. So that is fairly accurate comparison. So we are a little higher than the national average and even in the urban areas for the number of responses that we're doing. Sworn police per 1,000 people, the national average is 2.7. We're at 3. So after hiring and adding, we've been keeping up with the needs there. Police calls per 1,000 are trending a little down. The national average is 807, and we're at 537. So really what that indicates is hopefully that our officers have more time to do some proactive policing compared to what everybody else is doing because they're responding to more calls. And so I think if you look nationally, that's the difference between, like Amarillo goes call to call to call, to where, we don't necessarily go call to call. So our staffing and call load, I think, are pretty well. I know we've had a lot of topic about this, so I kind of wanted to point this out. DWI arrests per 1,000 population. National average is 4.09. We're at 6.13. So we are definitely trying to work on that and enforce that as the police department becomes more proactive in that as well. Part 1, property crimes. I know we get a lot of talk about property crimes. The national average is 30 per 1,000 population. We're 19. So, of course, we want that to be down to 0 or as close to 0 as we can. But compared to other places, we are, doing pretty good. And we have done a pretty good job at reducing that in the last 3 years over the 3 years prior. So that is at least positive, trending positive. Part 1, violent crimes. National average is 4. We were at 3.5 last year. You'll see the big decline in that. Part of that was we found out we had some crimes misclassified. And so we were reporting nonviolent crimes as violent crimes. And so it's important for us to identify that. And this is an example of what tracking data can give us. And we can see those errors and get things corrected. Because that data goes to the census, and so when you search city data and all that stuff online about how safe your community is, that all factors in there. And so we were reporting close to 20 when in reality we were down around 4 or 5. So it's going to take a couple of years for those trends to catch up through the FBI and the census, but we are doing a little better on that. So we definitely want to make sure we are paying attention to the data. Other thing we've talked about in the last couple of years is reducing our P-card purchases, the number of purchases made with credit cards. The national average is 5%. We were up to 90%. And so after changing some of that, the last year we were down to 29%. So that's a pretty good reduction. We talk about this a lot too. Our percent paid to Hutchinson County vendors. So last year we were at 34%. Our goals are to maintain about 40%, considering that a lot of our big money expenses right now, there's not a contractor or vendor. We don't have a pool contractor in town. 10th Street was a lot of that. We bid it out. We didn't have a local respondent respond, but of course, Rice has been taking care of Yucca Estates. So we do keep track of that, and so we are mindful of that. We've made some changes this year. I think we're already trending a little higher on that going forward. Total workers' comp claims, we divided those out, but I thought it was important just to show our totals. When we calculate against others, we can't compare ourselves against others on just total claims because a bigger city, of course, is going to have total claims, so we divide those by FTEs to get a comparison. But we are down a little bit from the year before, and so we're trending at least pretty steady and pretty positive with that. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of that. City turnover rate, I think this is another one that I'm pretty proud of and something we're trying to work on. And so we've got our turnover rate for the last 2 years has been down 11%. That's well below our previous average in 2019 and before of 17%. So as we try to, become more stable, that does provide cost savings and efficiencies to our citizens as well. So I think that's an important number. Public safety turnover rate, which I think is a bigger key, is we're down under 10% for public safety turnover. So police, fire, EMS, we've really made a lot of changes there and are keeping those employees that we have. So that's I think a good trend there. Talking about Deidre and our public engagement, this is one of our strategic pillars, is to make sure we're engaging with our public in a lot of different ways. I know that social media is only one aspect of that, and as you see all the time, we do have multiple aspects we do that, but this is one that we look at on the digital side. But you can see the massive increase in our social Facebook engagement over the last 3 years as we've continued to work out and do that, and as we work through the budget and look at other ways to generate content and educational material to continue to engage our public is an important goal of ours. Building maintenance cases. So as we go through some code enforcement numbers, because we always get, that's a council priority to increase code enforcement as well as a public priority. So we started 21 building maintenance cases on buildings last year. That's increasing as we've stabilized and increased staffing and code enforcement. So I did kind of want you to see that some of those are paying off now that we've added that second code enforcement position. We started 102 junk vehicle cases last year, up from 32 the 2 years prior. Weed and vegetation cases, we started 884 weed and vegetation cases last year for overgrown vegetation, and 190 waste and debris cases, up from 75 the year before. When we look at that, last year 11% were resolved through forced compliance. So that means that we had to force compliance and get an order or some sort of, we mowed them because they didn't, or we got the court order and took care of them. So only 11% of those were for forced compliance. 54% were actually voluntarily resolved. That's up from 5% and 8% the 2 previous years. So I think that's very positive of Johnny and the entire team back there's efforts in educating and reaching out and working with our community to make sure that
some of
the lawn care kits, the neighborhood cleanups, those are things that we can show that our programs are working. And so, if we were spending a lot of money on keeping those lawn care kits and this was still at 5%, maybe that lawn care kit's not worth it, but we've increased that exponentially. And of course, we want people to maintain their own stuff. It's cheaper and easier on us. But they're like, one of my big soapbox here lately is our job is to partner with the community in everything that we do. We can't do it all, and we can't expect the citizens to do it all, but we can create partnerships to where we can be more effective together. And I think that data point definitely shows some of the benefit of that. We also filed 75 court cases last year, so I actually filed charges on people for failing to maintain. That's up from 7 the year before. So we are starting to take more through municipal court. The alley crew has continually increased the number of alleys that they're going through. They went through 1,171 blocks of alley last year. Now, keep in mind that it is the homeowner's responsibility to keep their alley clean, but we have part-time staff that's doing that to keep up with it. So that is a cost that gets passed on to everybody when you're not doing what you're doing, but we are cleaning more alleys. Of those blocks, they removed 191 tons of debris from the alleys last year. That's up from 146 the year before and 86 the year before that. So that's 400,000 pounds. We abated 13 substandard structures last year. That is up from 5. If you remember, a Wendell retired kind of in that window when they started going down. We were using part-time, so we do have our staff. Austin's been training, getting a lot better at that, so we are seeing an uptick in the number of substandard structures we're able to demolish now. We do that. I know we get a lot of feedback that it looks like we don't, but a lot of those are in areas that unless you drive by them, you might not have seen. Of course, this last month they did get the one down at West Wilson and Carbon Road that probably almost everybody has seen and looked at for a long time. So yes, some of them are more visible than others.
And there is state law that you have to, you can't do so many.
660 feet. You can't demolish more than one structure within 660 feet of each other within 12 months without doing an asbestos abatement, and then if there is asbestos, abating. So we generally spread that out. But we are still making progress with that, even though it might not be the property you're most interested in. And remember that that exemption does not exempt commercial buildings. So a commercial building has to be abated before we can tear it down, which gets extremely expensive really quick.
And concerning the alleys, too, I just want to put it out there again. A lot of people don't know that if you put tree limbs in your alley, the trash people don't pick those up. That's not their job. They have to notify the other people.
Right, the trash truck that goes through the alley, it's designed and manufactured to pick up the dumpster. Its sole job is to pick up and empty the dumpsters. They can't get out of their truck and put it in. There's no method or mechanism to get bulk waste or limbs into the truck.
But if the people would call, they'll come out and pick it up.
And if you do call and ask for those limbs to be picked up, we ask that you move them to the front curb so the boom truck can pick them up.
Right.
We have a route for that, or you call and request one of the bulk waste self-help trailers that we'll set. All you got to do is throw your stuff in it, and then we'll haul it off. So there again, as we look for education, go on the website, look for all those programs. There are lots of different things that we do now to partner with our community to try to make it better or to help you do what you need to do.
Right.
With our new automatic meters, we've started being more proactive in our leak notices made when we receive notice of leaks. You see, last year we did over 5,000 leak notices made to customers with ongoing continuous use. The year before that, it was 5,700. Year before that, 3,600. We're starting to see it go down now because we actually are getting people to fix their leaks. The other data point we're going to start tracking starting next year is our water loss amount. So you'll be able to see, our water loss versus the leaks, so we can kind of compare those and see how we're getting there. But if you get those notices, it's, sometimes we've had citizens get upset. I don't know why. It's there to try to save our water resources, which are not necessarily infinite, and to solve problems in your residence before they turn into more expensive problems. So. In animal control, last year they handled 1,051 animals. That's been pretty constant over the last couple of years. Of that, the live release rate was down to 50% last year, but if you remember, we had that distemper problem. And so they implemented where they started to vaccinate all incoming animals with distemper vaccines, and even at the last Easter dog party, animal control was there giving out distemper vaccines. So far this year, our live release rate is back up to 62% already, and it's been trending positive. So we have corrected that problem. So I don't want this all to be fuzzy and yay us. We do see problems, but it does help us identify problems, and then we put solutions into place. So this is another one that helped us identify a problem and then got a solution. In fact, where we're now back up above that, getting close to what our target was. Animal bite cases, they've worked 70 last year, which is up from 45. So, that can sometimes take away from time when they have other things to do. So that's just kind of something to be on the lookout. Now back in some other police department areas, of those, what we went over earlier were the calculated values. So now we're going through each department. Of the property crimes reported, we did solve 30% of those. That's up from 27% and 26% and 19% the year before. So we are, solving a pretty good chunk of those, considering that a lot of times there's not a lot of evidence, to go on. On our violent crimes cleared, that's 67%, which is still above the ICMA average. That's come down a little bit, but because a lot of those, remember, we had those crimes that were misclassified. Those misdemeanor assaults are a lot easier to clear. And so some of the crimes that we are not reporting now that we're reporting as misdemeanor crimes that aren't violent crimes were cleared, so that reduced the clearance rate just a little bit. But we are still above the national average, so we're doing, I think, pretty good with those. High priority response time last year was 167 seconds. The national average is 270. So if you're upset that you're waiting for a police officer, we're still responding way quicker than you probably would get almost anywhere else. Percent of traffic stops resulting in a citation. This is that one, we must need new cars, so we're out writing tickets. Last year, only 19% of traffic stops resulted in a ticket. So you had a much larger chance of getting a warning than you did a ticket. And that was up a little bit last year because we did have that big turnaround last year. The year before that, it was at our 15% target, but we did have a lot of extra traffic in town last year. So if you go back and look at where those are coming from, they're a little bit which is also why you'll see our traffic accidents were up last year. There again, when you have 3,500 contractors in town doing the big turnarounds, that tends to happen. So if this chart went farther back, the last big turnaround, you'd see a big spike too. They still submitted 486 cases to prosecution. So, you know, while we saw their call volume go down, the crime volume isn't necessarily going down. We're still submitting as many cases to prosecution. And so remember that the police department's only one part of the criminal justice system. And so they can't take the blame for just everything. On the fire side, structure fires, we were down to 16 last year. So some of that's where finally, the more structures we abate, a lot of times those fires happen in those substandard structures. So, you know, we hope to see that come down a little bit. I think the big news in the fire department side is the percent of fires contained to the room of origin was increased big time last year up to 76%. So there again, we're starting to have less of those totally burned out buildings, and we're getting a better response and getting them on quicker. And so part of that is why we do have that ISO 2 rating versus some others, and why you do get to see some of those savings on your homeowner's insurance rates. And I know they're not necessarily cheap, but they could be a lot higher in other cities with those higher ratings. Travel time under 4 minutes, so we've seen an improvement in travel time as well. Some of that depends on call distribution. Some of it's getting in the truck faster, but their national average is 53%. We were at 62% last time. So considering that we're as spread out as we are, that's a pretty good number for them. Now, of course, we've only had EMS for 1 year, so I'm just kind of, you know, you're not going to see a trend on them yet, but I did kind of want to point out just a few, I think, interesting numbers. So last year we had 599 interfacility transfers. So that's either from GPCH to BSA, or from a nursing home to Golden Plains, or Golden Plains back to a nursing home. So not an emergency response per se. 600 of those. That's about 2 a day in addition to the emergency response. EMS revenue last year was 1.1 million. And our collection rate was 27%. This year, our target's always been 40%. This year, we're at about 37% now. So we've talked about that with some of our other plans for some of that money, and some of that is still looking improved. And we did get approved for that supplemental reimbursement program that we talked about here a while back. So we'll start seeing that probably sometime next fiscal year as well. On the urban interface acres thinned, so last year they thinned 393 acres in the immediate interface of the city of Borger. So thinning, that's not just prescribed burning, that's, you know, mowing, tree delimbing, cleaning up, you know, all sorts of mitigation efforts, but that's 393 acres. I think that's a pretty good amount. Of that, 197 were treated with prescribed fire. And part of that 197 in fiscal 04 was the 7 Mile burn, which is what kept that fire coming into the city. The revenue that the mitigation department made last year, they brought in over $1 million in revenue for state and mutual aid services. So you can see that that's continually increased. So that is one that is covering their operational cost. Outdoor warning siren, you'll see that in 2002 is when all of our warning sirens were back in had been completely replaced. So we've increased from 77% passed to pretty much 100%. We did have one system go out last year, which is why it was down just a little bit, but it has since been fixed. There again, our goal is to be 100% all the time, but with the new system, we're able to identify those problems and get them corrected sooner. So these are the times that they passed their monthly tests. So this is not the amount of time they were fixed or operational. So every time they fail, they're fixed within 24 hours. So they do the test when they do the monthly test. Edith attendees, this is our exit drills in the house trailer that goes around. So you can see we've been trying to push that public education aspect of that. We've increased our attendance about 75 last year to 846. So I think that's a good call. In dispatch, here's kind of the trend in 911 calls answered. So a little bit of flexibility in what's going on, but you know, they're still definitely staying busy considering you've got 11 employees in there answering 9,609 911 calls. That's just 911 calls. That's not the non-emergency line. That's just the emergency line. So they are pretty busy. The percent of calls dispatched in 2 minutes. So this is something they've been focusing on. You can see back in 22, that was 41%. Last year, it was all the way up to 84%. So we're able to get all that information in and get things dispatched quicker. ProQA accuracy, this is their protocol software. So the software randomly selects dispatchers and calls for quality assurance, QA. and the dispatch supervisor listens to the call and has got check boxes to go through. Are they asking the right questions? Did they get the right information? Did they follow all the procedures correctly? And then it scores them. So in 23, our accuracy was 74%. Last year, it was up to 91%. So our goal is 90%. In the street department, potholes filled. I know that people think we don't fill potholes. We do fill potholes. Sometimes it just doesn't last. And I'm sure that with the rain that we've just had, it's going to be really bad for the next couple of days once it dries out. Bear with them. They are working through all of that. We've also increased the amount of alleys that we grade, trying to keep those alleys in a little better drivable, passable space. So you can see back, we were doing less than 3,000 feet of alley a year. Last year we did 32,200 feet of alley, so we are really trying to keep tabs on that. Overall, the street department completed 432 work orders last year. So they've been pretty consistent with that over the last 4 years as we focus more on that. 24% of utility cuts have been repaired in 5 days. We're trying to increase that number. Some of that depends on when we can get to them and how many of them there are. We've talked about this a lot. The gas company's going around tearing up a whole lot of the town all at once, and so it just kind of takes some time to catch up. But we are being mindful of that. They know what their targets are, and we're trying to work on improving that. In solid waste, the percent of waste diverted. So this is metal dropped off in the metal pile. This is limbs taken to the limb pile, or grass diverted, instead of going through the transfer station. So the national average is 29%. That's somewhat skewed by cities that have recycling programs. We're too far away from a recycling receiver to be able to support a recycling program. But we are down a little bit last year. Some of that was being short-staffed, so it's harder for us to run some of those secondary routes. And some of the sorting gets, especially the yard sorting, when you're short-handed, gets cut out. It's quicker just to haul it off than it is to take that employee to sort it. So some of that impacts the waste diversion. The other thing to kind of notice is our tons of residential waste disposed, so we're pretty consistent in that. So our people are equally trashy or equally not trashy, however you want to look at that. We've been staying about the same, so that's not a comparison, so I don't know if that's a good number or a bad number. All I know is we're being pretty consistent. The other thing we're trying to track is the numbers of residential containers emptied twice a week, so we are trying to increase that. We are down just a little bit again. We're still 2 positions shorthanded in solid waste, so that really impacts that. But the fact that they are getting 28% of them emptied twice a week, being shorthanded, I think shows the effort that the solid waste team is trying to do and make sure that we're better at that. The more often we empty the dumpsters, the less they weigh, the less wear and tear on the equipment, and then we get less complaints of the dumpster being overfilled. So we are trying to improve that as well. Huber Park RV nights. So you can see the last couple of years we've been pretty good on that. Might start looking at some ways to kind of curb that, or might be time to look at a few improvements out there, but we are still at least above the previous 3-year average. But that's the number of nights that an RV was parked and using the Huber Park RV park. So this helps us give us numbers when we try to justify expenses or improvement out there. We do want to make sure that it's used. So Johnson Park Youth Center attendance. So you can see that with some of the changes we made out there, we've been doing pretty good out there. We've got our attendance up. It was over 11,000 last year. That's well above the 8,000 average that it had been in the mid past. So we've seen that steadily increasing. So we're excited to see that. And I know that Manny and Isaac are working on new programs and new opportunities for activities and stuff for people to do out there. So it's good to see that that's paying off. We do track gym rental hours now, so how much we're using the gym. So that's come up a whole lot. If you'd seen the chart before that, it was even way lower than that. So last year, the gym was rented 168 of the 365 days out of the year. Considering that the pool's open for a good chunk of that, that's probably most days that the pool's not open. Then we also check our co-filled rental hours. So it was rented a total of 1,170 hours last year. That's down just a little bit, but we were also closed for about a month last year when we were redoing the tile floor in there to make it better. And so I think that's still been a pretty popular venue. It is a cheaper alternative to the Dome, even though the Dome is still cheap for what you get. This is kind of the other number we're excited about, our Park Rec Summer registration. So last year, we'll see what we do last year. We got an item on that on there, but we did have a total of 348 unique children sign up for the Summer Park Rec program last year. That's up from 319, 296, and 233. So, that really is a pretty good program. Manny and Isaac work really hard to have good different activities to keep the kids occupied and engaged in learning. So that's an important number. Like to also point out this, our lifeguard saves last year, the lifeguards on duty at the youth center. So there were 95 kids or swimmers at some point that needed intervention from a lifeguard that prevented something from happening. So they've been pretty consistent the last 3 years, and that's kind of come up as we've seen the attendance come up. So you would expect a little bit of that. That goes to our NASCO certification. They've also been the last 3 years NASCO World Class rated. So I guarantee you that swimming pool is the safest public swimming pool anywhere around here. So as we get ready to open it and see all of its renovations in a couple of weeks, that's something to consider as well. Vehicle Service Center. Want to kind of point out our trend in auction revenue. So as we replace vehicles more often, not only have we reduced our maintenance line item, but we are also increasing the amount of revenue we receive from selling those vehicles when they have more money, more worth still in them to help us offset that replacement cost. So we brought in $261,000 in auction revenue last year. That with the $246,000 in maintenance expenses that we sold, that's about $500,000 that we could put back into additional replacement capital by replacing it more regularly than we would be if we weren't doing that. So there definitely is a savings in that. Line locates, so this is, when someone calls 811, the utility department has to go out and mark our lines. They did 1,654 of those last year. So divide that by 365, that's about 3.5 line locates a day that that department is doing. They did 49 water main work orders last year. That is trending up a little bit, but most of that is from boring contractors hitting our lines. So there's been a lot of fiber optic activity going around in the community. You're going to have more options for internet, but sometimes that comes at a cost to the water lines. That's generally what it is. Still, the vast majority of our leaks and water repairs are service line work orders. That's 341. So we had 40 mains, 341 service lines. We have started cross-training. You'll see that big uptake last year. So the sewer crew has been cross-training so that the sewer crew can help the water crew when they have additional leaks. So that's allowed us to double the number of service lines that we're replacing in a given year than what we have been doing. There are about 4,800 water connections in the city. So you can imagine if you're doing replacing 340 of those a year, it's going to take a while to get them all replaced. Most of the leaks you see are the service line from the main to the meter. And just over time, they just rub and they leak. So we're making pretty good progress in getting through those. It just takes time. Most of the water mains are good, and we still have one of the better water systems around. Average day to work order completion has dropped down to 3. A lot of that's because of the main breaks increasing. A water main break is an emergency, so we don't have to wait for the dig test. The service line is not an emergency. And so we have to call it in. We have to give them the 72 hours to mark it before we can dig. I got a call earlier this year. Well, I called in this water leak this morning. It's still not fixed. I don't know what y'all are doing. And so some of that is just education. If unless it's a water main, unless the leak is so bad that it has the possibility of impacting the pressure in the entire system and the bacterial load, we have to take the time to call it in just like everybody else does before they dig, and we have to wait those 72 hours. So the fact that most of them are getting fixed within 4 days when we have to wait 72 hours is still pretty good. Mm-hmm. But we are keeping track of that. Last year they cleaned 607 manholes. 2021, you see that 284. That's when our line back behind here collapsed and the sewer crew was having to vacuum out 2 manholes 3 times a day, every day of the week. Yeah. Kind of hard to clean manholes when you're having to manually haul sewer while you're waiting for the sewer line to get replaced. So now that we're all flowing again, they're back on their preventative maintenance schedule and doing quite a bit of work there. Overall, the sewer crew completed 4,190 work orders last year. Running lines, cleaning manholes. So that's nine team members doing 4,190 work orders. That's over 10 a day. Last year, we treated 4.3 billion gallons of water. We completed 1,650 16,585 lab analysis on that water to ensure that it is safe and meets state standards to drink. Part of those analyses were done for other communities that generated $29,950 in revenue. We are one of only 2 municipally certified water treatment labs in the Panhandle. So you go to Amarillo or you come to us, we are seeing a little bit of uptick. Amarillo's labs only open to the public Monday through Friday. Our lab techs, since they operate the plant and everything too, are there 6 days a week. We treated 352 million gallons of wastewater last year. Of that, 39% was sold to Nutrien. Remember, they had a turnaround last year, so they were down a little bit, which is why that number's down, because when they're down for turnaround, they don't take water. And those are kind of just the highlights. Remember, there are over 300 total measures in that book that's on the website and in front of you, but those are some of the things that I thought were worthy of pointing out.
Thank you. Thank you, Garrett. If there's no comments or questions or anything, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to receive the fiscal year 2024 performance management analysis.
I second.
All in favor? It passes. And item 15, conduct a public hearing and then consider and take appropriate action to approve on final reading ordinance O-006-25, renewing the standard of care for youth programs. Mr. Spradlin.
So we talked about this a little bit last week. So this is the guidelines and procedures we use to operate the youth programs, specifically the Summer Park Rec program. Part of the state law requires us to conduct a public hearing and re-adopt those every year. This is the 6th year we've done that. So the details are in your packet, but I'll entertain any questions. Otherwise, you can open the public hearing.
Okay, at this time we'll open a public hearing. If anyone has anything they'd like to talk about on it, and if not, then we will close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve on final reading ordinance number 0-003-24, renewing the standard of care for youth programs.
All in favor? And passes. And then item 16, consider and take appropriate action to award the bid for one Type 1 ambulance to
Siddons is how I say it.
Martin Emergency Group for $379,610, utilizing HGAC Cooperative Contract number AM 10-20.
Thank you for taking the time to look at today. This is kind of like the same thing we looked at the last time when we bid on it. It's for fiscal year 28, and so the benefit we get now is the long lead times, and we get to lock in the price that we paid today. So there's not really any changes. The same style, same box, same design.
The lead time is not short.
Yeah.
No. We still don't have that ambulance we were supposed to have back in December.
We were supposed to have it in December, then it was March, now it's December of the next year.
Yeah.
So this will be in the budget, the 2028 budget.
Yeah, so right now, you have one for fiscal 25 on order that should have already been here. You have one for 26 that's on order that hopefully will be here on time, which they say is on time. One ordered for fiscal 27, which they say is supposedly still on time. And then now this one will be the one for fiscal 28. So the plan was always kind of to get one every year to keep replacing. You know, we talked about those 599 interfacility transfers. Those rack up a lot of miles in a hurry. And so we need to make sure that we have this coming. That's kind of what's delaying our staffing of that third truck that the council authorized in the budget amendment, because right now we don't have a truck for it. So,
yes.
And so we won't even, we talked about some initial budget numbers in our work session. That'll pare some of that down, because I'm not going to need to budget for all of those positions all of next year, because we are not going to have a truck for them till December, hopefully.
Likely, yeah, hopefully.
Maybe.
Well, they said it would be here sooner, and then they asked me for the paint coat about a month ago, so.
Well, that's positive. But I will just remind us that our goal is to try to get 5 units all the same on the ground here, because at that point, we don't have to buy new units, we can remount. And what that means is they take the box off and change out the chassis. And so we just get a new cabin chassis. But the problem is the remount takes 6 months from the time they get a chassis. So we need to have enough units that we can send a truck away, have our maintenance spare, and still have the 3 first out ambulances. So
And what will be the regular rotation on the ambulance?
I still think we'll be doing 1 a year. The difference is instead of spending $379,000 on a new one, a remount's probably $250,000.
I think he quoted me just over 100,000 for a remount.
So it's significantly cheaper. And so then at that point, we'll get on probably a 2 remounts, 1 new, 2 remounts, 1 new, 2,
There's a pretty good demand for selling the old chassis and stuff, or not?
By the time we're going to get rid of a chassis on them,
Okay.
I mean,
2 of my trucks already have 100,000 miles.
those are the new ones that we bought 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
So
Well, one of them was gone.
yeah, and one of them was one of them was down for maintenance. So I mean, we're easily putting 50 or 60,000 miles on an ambulance a year. So that's just going to be one of those ongoing. Yeah.
Does anyone have anything they would like to talk about or questions? Any comments?
Just get them here.
If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move
Thank
to
you, Jim.
authorize the purchase of one-wheeled Coach Texas Edition Type 1 ambulance from Sidon's Martin Emergency Group for a total amount of $379,610 under HGAC buy contract AM 10-23 EMS with delivery expected in fiscal year 2028.
I'll second.
And all in favor? And it passes.
Now we'll just add, like you said, that price is locked in, and they have been honoring those prices. I guarantee you that a brand new ambulance ordered in 2028, they're not going to be quoting you that price. So there's definitely some time. And just to add just a little bit to it,
And we would have to wait 4 more years.
yeah, and Jeff said that we can delay delivery if it looks like it's going to get here too soon. So I'd a lot rather be in a position to have to delay it than be in a position not to have it.
And then moving on to item 17, consider and take appropriate action to adjourn.
Make a motion that we would adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank y'all all for coming. We appreciate y'all's attendance.
What do you think of our new
So nice in
surroundings?
here.
What do you think of our new surroundings?
I love it.